హాయ్ హలో నమస్కారం. నా పేరు తాళ్లపాక దినేష్ రెడ్డి. అయితే హైదరాబాద్ has known me as RJ Potugadu on Radio City 91.1 FM since a decade. Today is a very special day with the blessings of Jagadguru Shankaracharya Sri Vidhushekara Bharati Mahaswamiji Gari blessings tho and with the grace of Sharadamba, I am truly honored to have a conversation with Śatāvadhānī, Vidwan, Gannavaram, Lalithaditya Garu. Sir, namaskaram. You have such a unique path that on one hand it is aerospace engineering, on the other hand it is the deep Shastric study. How did this both worlds come together for you?
The first answer that anyone should give is that it is Bhagavan's will that some things just happen. So that aside, since a young age, I was always interested in things that were logical. Obviously, the sciences were a matter of interest, and obviously, as I matured, that logical approach is also seen in the traditional branches of learning, the Shastras. So, when one has a mind that can appreciate both of those, these two things for me do not actually seem very contrary. The fields of learning do not seem contrary. Yeah. So to be interested in the sciences and to be interested in the Shastras are not opposite poles, like how you would see the arts and the sciences, where one is creative and one is more empirical. That is not how I view this. Both of these are fields that do appeal to a rational mind, and it just so happened that the same happened here. Why aerospace engineering? That was I think since I was young, I did like the usual fascination with space and all of that carried through, and it's also very application heavy. At least the field, the courses that I took in my college days were very much useful for applications. There were a lot of testings, models, prototypes that we were doing, so it was a lot more easier to see than in other fields. Aerospace engineering has always been a bit more hands-on. So I mean, okay, there are applications to all fields, but it was a lot easier when you can see a drone or you can see a gimbal or you can see whatever it is that you're doing. And most of the extracurricular activities that I did in this field were also of the same nature. So I was never more into the theoretical side. But that on one hand. The other side is the approach to the cosmos that is there in the Shastras is quite nice, in the sense that every religion does the same thing, but how do you make sense of everything? And the value of a philosophical system lies in how much does that system make sense. So, I mean, that is why we have all these topics of a just God, or a benevolent God. These words come because you are trying to say what system makes the most sense. So, I quite liked the approach that our Shastras had. And the other thing is that when you do look at them, they draw heavily from our worldly experiences. They are not talking of some kingdom of God that is somewhere. The concepts that you discuss in Vedanta, while of course the Upanishads and such do give us certain insights, there is an undeniable strength that is drawn from the experience of the everyday man. So, for example, one simple experience that is shown is, we are told in the Shastras that your true nature is pure bliss and it is bereft of the body and the mind. The simple example that they give that everyone can relate to is that when you go into deep sleep, that is to say when you are not awake and you pass the dream state as well, there is no connection at all with the body and the mind. And regardless of what your situation in the outside world is, you can be as rich or poor, you can be extremely healthy or afflicted by any kinds of illness, you can have as much pressure, but once you get to that state, the only thing you experience is happiness. So basically, when you have removed all external factors, what remains is happiness. So this is not something that is foreign to us all. We all experience it every day without fail. So such methods of reasoning, at least, this is a very, basic level kind of point. But there are more such points in greater depth that did quite appeal to me as well. So I like the approach of the sciences, and I do not feel that approach is contradictory to the Shastras. Maybe just that the realms of both are a bit different, but the approach is the same, which is why both of those had appealed to me.
Wow. But what makes more curious me to ask is, what happened? What was the turning point, or what was it? So young, at a very young age, you have stepped into the spiritual understanding, or you were seeking for that. So what was the turning point?
I would have to say during COVID. COVID opened up new experiences for everyone. So those 2 years that we were all forced to sit between four walls, our courses also were online. So until then, I was doing both parallelly. I was having some Shastra Patha online, and of course, college was also progressing as usual. It was during COVID that when we saw the lengths of that, for me at least, when we saw how much we were adjusting to pursue worldly fields versus when I realized that I was not willing to adjust how I pursued this, I felt that why adjust at all? So, seeing that when forced into a path wherein I had to pick between two, or if I had to pick between two, it became very clear to me during that period of time that I was certainly happier in one than in another. So, not that I was somehow fed up or tormented by normal studies. That was there anyhow. But it became very evident to me in that period wherein it was pure study. Right? There is nothing else that you're doing. So, is it just this or just that? It became the difference between how those two made me feel became very different. And yeah, I mean that was there. There was also, of course, a sense of heritage in this that is not there in that. So the study of Vedanta and philosophy, Indian philosophy, is of course tied to some of the pride that comes with being of Indian descent and all of that. The material sciences are universal in that sense, in the sense that they are not really tied to any particular culture. So of course, idi manadi anna feeling kuda that was also there. So this appealed to me more, and I felt that then, especially I felt that if this is calling to me so strongly, why not make that my calling? So while this was a thought in my head, the thought had come into my head only then. Until even when I had started college, I was under the impression that I'll finish, work a 9 to 5 job, and then study Sanskrit and Shastras outside as much as I could. But it was only during this situation in COVID where I saw that when forced into a kennel of these two, that I was very clear about where my heart was. That the first thought of saying that, okay, why not dedicate everything to this came. But obviously, I did not commit on anything. It was just a thought. One more thing is also here that obviously bhakti towards the Jagadgurus and the Sharada Peetha was always there. And especially those 2 years, there was this burning desire inside that whatever I'm getting here is nothing compared to what I would get if I was there. So until then, I was going and coming in the summers, and whenever I had breaks, I would go and come, and I used to really cherish every moment that I was in Sringeri. So there is a saying in English that absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
Right. So it's until you are removed from something for a while, you don't understand really how attached or how much you miss it. So that also became very apparent to me in those 2 years that I want to go to Sringeri, I want to go see my guru. I felt much more fulfilled there than I am at home in the US doing these kinds of worldly things. So that feeling also strengthened. I had not acted or decided on anything, but those feelings had strongly solidified and I had recognized those feelings. Then one semester before my college studies were to finish, I went to the Jagadguru and I prayed for guidance about what to do next. So I said that I am going to be getting a bachelor's degree in engineering. I am going to also be getting a degree in Sanskrit. And because our college had a course there, so I just did that too. And a minor in business. So what should I do? After asking my parents' preference and my preference, and after both answers were that whatever the Jagadguru tells, the Jagadguru gave a simple order that just come here and stay. So that was a very easy decision to make after that. So it is a guidance of the Guru as well as some feelings that had taken root during COVID. So the decision as such to completely come to this side was very easily not a decision that I had to make. The only decision I made was to leave the decision to my guru. So, but the thought had come up before. It's not like it was an unforeseen thought. The thought had come up. I had not taken the decision into my own hands to act on it.
But so at this point, can I say, because the student is ready, Guru said, come.
Yeah, so one thing that we know is that the guru will never tell the student something that he is not ready for. And ready or not sounds like a badge of honor on my side. But what the student needs perhaps is a better way to look at it.
Yeah.
So what this student needed from then on was seen and graced accordingly.
Vidwanji, I understand the engineering and Sanskrit and all this, but Śatāvadhānī, it's not a fun play. Though, sitting and watching that, listening to it is amazing, but inside it is sitting on the stage, it's a very challenging thing. How did that?
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, an Avadhana, it is very fun for it is very entertaining for the viewers. If the Avadhani, మీ పేర్లో మంచి అవధాని పోటుగాడుగా అంటే then the Avadhani also will honestly not feel any pressure. However, to be an Avadhani, to be a proper Avadhani takes a lot of work. See, as is the case with every field today, the second that any position carries some degree of weight or importance, the immediate response in the public is to dilute it and make it widespread. I mean, that is always the case. In the past also, Sangeetam, being a Sangeeta Kachiril Jadam, being a Vidwan, was in the past there is a level. Now it is that since singing and doing performance is a big thing, everyone has started. And naturally that comes with a dilution. Obviously, being a Vidwan in Sangeeta and all carries a level of respect. Performances and stages and all are bread and butter for that field.
Yeah.
So the natural response that we have seen is that so many more people are learning, which is good. However, because of the desire to perform, there is a difference between learning for the sake of the art and learning for performances. The second that performances become sought after, learning the art becomes diluted.
Yeah.
So if we are not viewing Avadhana in that light, because since the 90s, which we can arguably say was the golden age of Avadhanas recently, the quality or the idea of being an Avadhani and being in a particular stature is one that has gripped many people. If we put that aside, to be a proper Avadhani does take work. So the first thing that is needed is you have to read like crazy. You have to read a lot. Because the Avadhana tests your versatility in literature. You cannot get versatility without reading. You can be as intelligent as you want, you can be as sharp as you want. Your normal studies can progress in any level of efficiency. But unless you have a varied and vast reading of literature, you cannot be a proper Avadhani. So because the beauty in Avadhana is not just finishing whatever challenges are given to you. The beauty is doing it in a very novel way. So when a trained ear hears the Purana, hears the completion, he should be astounded that was what he came up with. If there is any question, honestly, most people can have a general idea. But the beauty lies when you can make it an unforeseen thing. So that is only possible through a great deal of reading. And especially for Telugu, it is not enough to be a Telugu Pandita to be a Telugu Avadhani. You have to know Samskrita too, if you wish to truly be worth your mettle, to prove your mettle. So you have to be able to read a wide expanse of texts in both languages. And one more thing that you do have to have is a dedication to quality. So in the sense that Avadhani should seek challenges. So చాలా మంది రాజీ పడిపోతుంటారు. I mean, lots of people will settle like, I hope this Avadhana is easy. Then there is no point in doing an Avadhana. You can write poetry at home as per your will. Right? The whole point is you should want a challenge. You should like a challenge. So the Avadhani should seek that. And you will see that when there is no actual challenge in the question, but the Avadhani puts it upon himself to still do it in a challenging way. So for example, ఇప్పుడు దత్తపది అని చెప్పి ఉంటుంది. There is a field called దత్తపది wherein you are given 4 words and you will be asked to put those 4 words into the poem. So sometimes they will give you more challenges wherein the words do not fit the topic. They'll give Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna and ask you to talk about Mahabharata. Obviously, these two will not fit. But if someone says Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna, tell me about Ramayana, the easy way out is to use those words in their own meaning.
Yeah.
But an Avadhani, Dammunde Avadhani, an Avadhani who is sitting there with the desire, with the view that this is a challenge in which it is a test of his command over the language, of his erudition in the language, should not use the word Rama in the meaning of Bhagavan Sri Rama, but he should figure out a way to fit it. For example, Arama. Arama is a garden. So, ಇದು Ashokāramamo, and it will be the Ashokavana. So he should do something like that. Outlook of the Avadhani also matters. So if you take all of these qualities together, that is what will make you a good Avadhani.
Wow.
So I don't know if this was your question or not. I think your question was how I...
No, I've got this.
Yeah. So from my side, I would actually say that I did not have to put much extra effort for Avadhana simply because my love was always for literature. So I learned to write padyas and I read lots of kavyas, especially in Sanskrita. In fact, my friends and I joke that I am a Sanskrita kavi, not a Telugu kavi, and that my Telugu Avadhanas are actually Sanskrita Avadhanas in the guise of a Telugu Avadhana, simply because I am more heavier in Sanskrita. So reading those works and in a wide variety too was very helpful for me because that was what I liked. So when it came time that I had to do an Avadhana, it is not that I had to now start putting arrows in my quiver that I did not have before. It became much easier, which is why when a very well-known name in Avadhana today, who has perhaps created more Avadhanis than anyone else in history, his name is Shri Dhulipala Mahadeva Manindaro. He is known by the title Avadhana Pracharya simply because he has taught so many people Avadhana. He has made almost 5 or 6 Śatāvadhānīs. So forget about normal Ashtavadhanis, he has made 5 or 6 Śatāvadhānīs. So when he had seen some poems that I had written, he then told me that I will teach you Avadhana if you want. So the thing is, when it came time for that, all that was needed or where the coaching or the training was given was Lusukulu, or the fine tuning of the each element. So what are the fine points of Samasyas, what are the fine points of Dattapadis. So fine tuning was done. But it is not that I had to be taught literature from IE to onwards. So it really helped that my parents, especially my father, they were all lovers of literature, and I myself like to read a lot. So that when combined with a relish for a challenge, makes me enjoy Avadhana a lot. So when I do sit for an Avadhana, I do it with a bit of challenging attitude. So I do enjoy it, and it is because this is the case that, as I said in the beginning, there is no pressure. It is only if you are worried about what is going to happen that there is pressure. The second that you are confident in your abilities and you feel satisfied that you have done the best that you can, knowing that there is still a long way to go, but knowing that you have done what you can, there is no pressure that will be felt. So my approach to Avadhana is this, and that is why I enjoy it.
Great. Always watching or getting an audience to sit and the Avadhana is a Brahmanda feeling.
Yeah. Because the audiences are also twofold. There are some people who come thinking that they'll be listening to Uppu Kappurambu. There are some people who come knowing what is going on in front of them. So that second category of listeners is always my target audience. So I have always respected the scholastic tradition and the scholarly circle. So na prakaram, it is that anything that you do should be of that level. There is no point in diluting your work simply to cater to a larger audience. The point is you want to elevate the audience along with you, not bring yourself down there. So whenever I do an Avadhana, whoever are the greatest scholars present there in that gathering, in that sabha, they are my target audience. So I think that is also my benchmark in terms of is this Avadhana up to the quality that I want, or not? Is it up to the mark or not? That is my benchmark. అక్కడ ఉండే విద్వాంసులు ఎవరైతే ఉన్నారో, the పండితాస్ who are there, it should be to their liking.
Yeah.
If their review of the Avadhana is that he did something, then it means that Avadhana has not gone properly.
Great insight. And yeah, Śatāvadhānā, Vidwan, Lalithaditya Garu. I would like to know, could you please give us a verse from Sanskrit or Telugu literature that has profoundly gave you a thought or unique change in you?
In the span of Sanskrit and Telugu literature, you will find so many padyas that if you read it with an open mind, it will have an effect on you. An unfortunate situation is that in today's day and age, there is a stigma that these are all outdated or that these are all works of the past. So the approach itself is that ఏదో పాతకాలం వాళ్ళు చాదస్తంగా రాశారు is the approach, which I mean that is what you will see in that. You will not see anything besides that. But if viewed with an open mind, there are so many texts, or forget about even texts, there are many lines in verses that do speak to us. In fact, when studying Sanskrit literature, the first kavya that you are taught is the Raghuvamsha of Kālidāsa. So in the beginning itself, Kālidāsa starts off the epic by saying that the kings of the Raghuvamsha were such noble figures. There are some 5-6 verses devoted to talking about the kings in general. And those verses itself, if you do take those to heart, those are perfect guidelines for how to live your life. For example, Shaishavebhyasta Vidyanam Yovane Vishayeshanam Vardhake Munivrittinam Yogenante Tanutyajam. These are the kings. They lived their life in this way. So Shaishave, when they were young, Abhyasta Vidyanam, they have studied well. Yovane Vishayeshanam, in their youth, they enjoyed everything that life had to offer. Vardhake Munivrittinam, as old age dawned, they began to retract from the world. Yogenante Tanutyajam, and they left the body of their own will. The body did not leave them. So it is a very simple verse. This is within the first 10 verses of Raghuvamsha. But if you take this to heart, this is a blueprint of how to live your life. When you are young, your only goal should be studying. With that, you live life to the fullest. Enjoy what life has to offer in a righteous and a proper way. Then do take into account that enjoying things is not the only thing that life has to offer. There is something more. So you do have to retract from all of this. And in the end, it should be you who is leaving the body, not the body who is leaving you. That is why Tanutyajam, they left the body. For all of us, it is the case that the body leaves us, although we desperately try to hang on to it with medicines or whatever. At some point, the body ends up leaving us. But it is the mark of a yogi and a spiritually enlightened person that they leave the body. So this one shloka is so profound. It is 32 letters. But there is so much meaning in that. So one such shloka that had a very profound impact on me, and that still guides me to this day is, again, after talking about this, the first king that is talked about is Dilipa, whom we all know from the story of the cow. He is ready to sacrifice his own life to protect a cow. So while describing how Dilipa lived, there are 2 shlokas in particular that spoke to me. One is Bhimakanter Nrupaganaihi Sababhu Opajeevinam Adhrishyascha Abhigamyascha Yado Ratnairi Varnavaha. So this is about how to carry yourself in public. So if you wish to be respected but not feared, how do you carry yourself? So there is that old Thomas Machiavelli. He was an old philosopher. So he used to say, is it better for a king to be feared or loved? And his answer was, it is better to be feared. So what is the Indian take on this? And as an application, not just for kings, right? How should we behave? Hundaga batakali. If you wish to live in a dignified manner, how should you be? So it is said that Dilipa, especially being a king, he had both Bhima and Kanta gunas. He had both awe-inspiring and terrifying qualities as well as very pleasing qualities. So Dilipa had both Bhima gunas and Kanta gunas. That is to say, he had qualities that inspired fear as well as love. And therefore, to his subjects, he became Adhrishya and Abhigamya, unassailable as well as a refuge. So if a king is too harsh and cruel, the subjects will not have the trust in the government to actually interact with it. On the other hand, if the government does not keep some sort of a distance between them, the people will end up taking advantage of it. Right. So this is for a government, but when applied to an individual also, it is very much the same. You should keep everyone at a distance, but yet no one should feel that you are harsh. So this is a very nice statement on how to live your life. And of course, Kālidāsa gives a nice simile here that it is like the ocean. The ocean inspires love and fear to all of us. It is because it inspires fears that love that you want to go for cruises and etc. And it is fearful in that you don't want to be in the ocean without a boat. So the example that they gave there is Yado Ratne. There are gems in the ocean that we seek. Right? You dive off the coast of Sri Lanka and the southern tip of India. These pearl fisheries, wherein you dive for pearls, is there simply because of that. So those people live off the ocean. On the other hand, though, there are also yadas. Yadas is aquatic creatures, so sharks and the like. There are also animals that make you fear the ocean. At the same time, because the ocean does hold the promise of riches, you do seek it out. So in the same way, an individual should be approachable in that other people should have some value in him, and also not just value, they should have the confidence that the other person will help them. It should not be that we should be some cut-off individual who scorns everyone that comes to them. But వచ్చే వాళ్ళకి సహాయం చేసే లక్షణం ఈయన దగ్గర ఉంది అని నమ్మకం ఉండాలి. On the other hand, లోకు అయిపోకూడదు. It should not be that we can get anything that we want out of him. They should be scared to cross their limits. They should feel comfortable enough to approach us within a limit. They should be scared to cross a limit. So if you live your life like that, that is both a dignified and a fruitful life. So ఇది మామూలుగా బయట వ్యవహారం. This is one verse that always strikes my mind when it comes to behavior, especially when I started coming out into the public a bit more. This was always something that I had in mind. On a more personal level, so this is for public interaction. On a more personal level, one shloka that was very, that I still carry in my heart, and I had submitted this to the Jagadguru as well once, that what did Dileepa do for himself? Jugopa atmanam atrastaha bheje dharma manaturaha agrudhru radade swartham asaktas sukhamanvabhut. So he protected himself though he was not afraid. He followed dharma though he did not have any afflictions. He amassed wealth although he was not greedy. So first these three were told. That government people always have a security detail. That is necessary because security threats are more for them than for anyone else. But it is not that he was doing that out of cowardice. He was brave on his own. Out of duty, he maintained his security. In the same way, many of us start following rules only when we are in trouble. Only once we become sick do we remember that there is a Bhagavan and a temple somewhere. Until then, we are least bothered about it. Right? So, but he was not like that. Despite him not needing anything, he followed a righteous path. It is not that he followed a righteous path because he was forced into it or because he was needing something. He followed the righteous path because he wanted to. In the same way, he amassed wealth despite not being greedy. So it is necessary that you do amass wealth. You need things to live. No one will deny that. But you should not amass things because of a desire for wealth. You should amass wealth simply because it is the prudent thing to do if you wish to have a comfortable life that you should not want for anything in. And the last thing that is there in the shloka is what really stayed with me, is that asakta sukhamanvabhut. Asakti lekunda sukhalane anubhavinchadu. He experienced pleasures without attachment. So not just that he experienced objects without attachment. He experienced pleasure without attachment. That is to say, he was not even attached to the pleasure. I think we can read it even that far. So it is not just that he was not attached to the objects that gave him some conveniences, but he was not even attached to the pleasures that arose from those objects. So that when I read that, and especially as it matured over time, that especially ee marganlo annappudu, that really stuck with me, that you should not need comforts. But obviously manaki punyam untundi, papam untundi. Punya will give you some sukhas in life. There is nothing wrong in experiencing those as long as you are not attached to them. So you should not need comforts. There is nothing wrong in experiencing comforts that come your way, but you should not be attached to them. Whether that is there or not there, you should be able to operate at equilibrium. So this moral that was taught there, quite honestly, has shaped the course of my life. It is not an exaggeration to say that I strive for that or I try to live my life as per that guideline. That asaktas sukhamanvabhut. Asakti lekunda sukhanni anubhavinchadu Dileepudu. That line was one that really stayed with me.
Great. So much. So much. Okay, it applies to at many levels in the current state of life to everybody. Maybe connecting it to a phone. అవసరానికి మాత్రమే, not every second is not inside the phone.
Right.
Sorry, I made it very light, but just wanted to
no, I mean, see, this statement is not only applicable to everyone, it is applicable to all levels of experience, whether it is the simple pleasures of life like turning on a fan or wearing nice clothes, until the bigger luxuries of vehicles and houses and possessions. It is equally applicable to all of these. So if someone can take this to heart, they will always be at peace.
yeah.
So I mean, morals are there for the taking. It is up to us to read into them and take them to heart. For that, you have to approach it with that mindset. You should not start Raghuvamsha feeling that this is some old Indian hegemonical story of some king somewhere. This is the story. These are the tales of extremely virtuous people from whom we should be drawing inspiration. If this is the mindset with which you start the text, there is so much to be gained from that. It is not that this is what will maybe help you earn money or anything, but this will help you live life to the fullest. If you wish to live a happy life, at the end of the day, that is what we want. If you wish to live a happy life regardless of how the life is, this is more than enough to show you the way to do that.
Vidwan garu, మీరు whatever reference you bring in, it is exactly relatable to today's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because actually, since you said this too, this is because, as I said in the beginning, these are our system of inquiry is universal. So the reason why a text written 1,000+ years ago is relatable today is because they were not writing about the conditions of that day. They were writing about the human condition. So the fact that attachment breeds sorrow and that detachment is always better, or that people do have the habit of interacting with their own desires in mind and you should not be taken advantage, these are all universal concepts. So the fact that they had the prudence to see it then and vocalize it in such a way, in such a simple way, especially Kālidāsa, the beauty is that he'll tell it in a very simple way. ఇప్పుడు నేను చెప్పిన శ్లోకాల్లో there is no complication in it. So agruddhno artham adade. Without greed, he amassed wealth. It is a straightforward line. There is not even any vakrokti or some roundabout way of saying it. So it is so straightforward and so clear simply because they were clear about what they wanted to talk about. They were writing about the human condition in the individual scale. In a philosophical scale, they are writing about the workings of the cosmos. These are two universal concepts. They don't change with time. So those texts remain relevant to this day. And I mean, as you said, anyone who has the time to look at it will see that clearly.
Yeah, today's biggest problem is phone, so that's the reason I connected to it.
Yeah.
Please detach with the phone, you'll see the world.
I mean, the phone it's a great instrument to learn things. I mean, I can also, one more thing is that I would not have been able to do all of this were it not for the internet. I cannot tell you how many books I have read off of the internet. I prefer print books in my hand. Even today, if I can, I will just get the PDF bound, printed and bound. I will try to buy the book if I can, so that the people who are printing the books have customers. Because how many people are reading those books? So even if the handful of people who are reading those books are just printing it off the internet, that is not fair to those who are taking the work to print the books. So although I do like print media, for someone who is in the US, where will I get all the books that I needed to read? So the fact that there is an online database, some archive.org or something else, Sanskrit documents or something, the fact that there is such an online database of texts is a massive reason that I was able to do this. If I was born some 20 years before I would not have been able to do any of this. It was lucky that I was born exactly at the turn of the millennium, right after the .com boom, and the handheld phone came very soon, 2008 I think, that was when that started, iPhones and all started. So it is because I was right on time for that the fact that being removed from the place where all of these resources are, if I was still able to follow this path, that is entirely attributable almost to the phone as well. The phone and the laptop deserve as much credit as my own effort in that regard. So as you said, a phone is a phone. It is neither good nor bad.
Yeah.
It's up to how you use it.
How you use it.
Yeah.
We had a discussion on poetry. So it is said that poetry is not created, it is revealed. So I would like to know your experience when it is through you, not by you.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely, first of all, the poet should feel that it is through me, not by me. Because we do see many people who are certainly full of themselves that this is all their own prowess. But it is certainly, it is the best outlook to say that this is happening through me. And in fact, that gives us a greater responsibility. ఇంకా బాధ్యత ఉంటుంది దానివల్ల. ఇప్పుడు మన ద్వారా ఇది జరుగుతుందంటే మనం ఎంత జాగ్రత్తగా ఉండాలి. If this is indeed happening through us, we should not be the people to come in the way of it. So the job of the poet is in fact twofold. So one is clearing the mind, one is supplying the mind. He has to do both. So a poet who has a very pure heart but does not have enough knowledge to write is also not going to be successful. On the other hand, a poet who is very erudite perhaps in the language but he is not pure of heart will not have the ability to express ideas in a very pure way. Because we see this, it is a very interesting phenomenon, especially in Indian literature, that if when we talk about poets, the first person we talk about is Valmiki Maharshi, who wrote the Adikavya Ramayana. If you take some shlokas on their own, you will say, what is there in this? I mean, there are some shlokas wherein you cannot point perhaps to any particular merit, but yet that poem will strike you. So there, our texts have attributed that to a quality called Sattva Shuddhi. That is to say, the person who is writing it is so clear in his intent and is so pure of heart that the force of his personality becomes conveyed. Because when words combine in various ways, words are nothing more than expressions of our thoughts. So the more clear and pure those thoughts are, even if the words perhaps do not have any merit to themselves on their own, the way that they present themselves and combine will indeed reflect the purity of heart of the writer. So the reason why Vyasa Maharshi or Valmiki Maharshi, their writings, although they may not have great ornamentation like later poets, the reason why their poetry stands unsurpassed is because, being rishis and all, they had that purity of mind and a force of character that does carry through. Right? The character of the poet is also clearly seen. You cannot be someone of poor character and yet expect to write a lofty work. So definitely these both are needed. You cannot say that I am a good person. You do also need to do the work such that the words present themselves to you. ఎంత మంచి మనసు ఉన్నా కూడా దానికి సరి అయిన పదజాలం స్ఫురిస్తుందని చెప్పేం లేదు. సో ఇఫ్ యూ నీడ్ టు నో ద రైట్ లాంగ్వేజ్ టు కన్వే యువర్ పాయింట్, యూ డూ హ్యావ్ టు డూ ద నెసరీ లెగ్ వర్క్. యూ హ్యావ్ టు రీడ్ అ లాట్, యూ హ్యావ్ టు లెర్న్ the koshas which are there in literature. You do have to do all of that. On the other hand, only if you are virtuous, pure of heart, will purity in expression come. So, I mean, if there are, ఇప్పుడు ఆయన ఎవరు కరుణశ్రీ గారు ఉన్నారు, one poet in Telugu called Karunashri. He wrote one text called Pushpa Vilapa. So, he made up a narrative wherein one day he went out to get flowers for puja. The second he went to pluck the flowers all opened their mouth and started expressing their plight to him that we grow up in the cradle of our mother, this tree. Who are you to separate a child from the mother? గాలిని గౌరవింతుము సుగంధము పూసి సమాశ్రయించు భృంగాలకు విందు చేసేదము కమ్మని తేనెల మిమ్ము బొంట్ల నేత్రాలకు హాయి కూర్తుము స్వతంత్రుల మమ్ముల తాళుము త్రుంపబోవకము తల్లికి బిడ్డకు వేరుసేతురే. Such a heartfelt poem that we do satkara to the wind as it passes us by giving it gandha. We provide food for any bee that seeks us out. We do in fact provide ornamentation even for your own lady folk. So when that is what we are doing, why do you seek to pluck us off? Do not separate a child from the mother. See, I have said the same thing in these words, but the poem will have a stronger impact because the emotion of the poet then coupled with the purity of expression. Ippudu, how much compassion must someone have to indeed feel this way about a flower? Everyone passes flowers every day, everyone sees trees, and these are all objects of daily perception. Have we ever felt this way? Laksha bilvarchana chesestam. Do we know the pain of, or have we ever thought that there is some pain associated with plucking a leaf from a tree or plucking a flower from a tree? So these kinds of ideas only present themselves to those who do have the purity of heart to think in that way. So for the idea to strike, and then later on for the idea to be expressed properly. So for these two to happen, you need to have the necessary education, the knowledge base is very much needed. At the same time, you must be pure of heart. So these two are needed for good poetry. If you want poetry to come through you, poets do need to focus on these two. Which is why, I mean, people say that a great deal of Indian literature is Bhakti Sahitya, and that is in fact a virtue, because the dedication to that higher ideal is what allows you to purify your heart in a very unique way. So the fact that Bhakti Sahitya has given rise to so many beautiful works of poetry that, as we had said, stay relevant to this day, we can attribute that to the bhakti and the samskara that all these poets had in the past. Even the Nastika poets, for that matter, even the Buddha and Jaina poets, they had beautiful poetry simply because they were also clear. They were clear-minded, they were also virtuous people. Their path may have been different, but they were also very virtuous and noble people. So when that is the case, the question itself said, the poetry will present itself. Simply because such noble thoughts will come to you. And the second that you are educated, you will also be able to express them. So it is a combination of the two that we see.
Vidwan garu, with so much ease you present both ancient wisdom and also the modern thought in the language of today's youth. How do you do it? How do you balance or bridge this both?
So the first thing is that you have to start off with a conviction that these two are not opposed to each other. I think we talked about this in the beginning. We somehow start off saying that this is something completely different and this is archaic. Okay. So this is of the past. It is best not to start with that. Let us say that if that is indeed the conclusion that presents itself, there is no need to deny that. But at least when you start, you should not start with the decision already made. So when we do that, and we also need to keep in mind that the Western model is not a one-size-fits-all thing. The Western approach to science is no doubt it is very good. The system of trial and error, the scientific method, hypothesis, all of that is fine. That is good, and it has proven itself over time too. No one will deny that the Western approach to science is very efficacious. That is, we should not, in fact, I see sometimes we overcorrect and we say that in fact Western science is so limited and in fact everything was there in the Vedas. This is a gross overcorrection. So there is no need to denigrate the Western approach to science at all. However, it is only that you have to understand that the approaches are different. The approach of the ancient Indian civilization to the modern or to sciences in general, because physics did not come with Newton. Physics was always there. The laws of the universe exist. It is just different civilizations interact with them in different ways. So when that is the case, not everyone will approach it the same way as the West does. So that is all that we have to keep in mind. For example, a very simple concept that I like to tell is the Panchabhutas. Right, so the Panchabhuta, immediately when you translate, how do we translate it? 5 elements that everything is made out of. Obviously for a modern mind, they'll say, come on, there are some 120 plus elements in the periodic table. It is the old way of talking wherein they thought that there are only 5 elements, but now we are much more modern. This kind of a statement comes from a misunderstanding of why we said 5 elements. And it also does come therefore from not studying the Shastras that actually tell you about the system. So what are we classifying the elements right now based on? We are classifying them based on their chemical properties. Yeah. That is to say how they interact with each other. Yeah. A very gross oversimplification. But we are now classifying them based on how they interact with each other and of course their nuclear properties. That is not the approach that we were taking. See, the Indian mind was concerned with perception of the world. Right? The Pramana Shastra, the epistemology was very important to us. So we have classified the world based on how we perceive it. See, the periodic table is not based on how we perceive it. It is based on the traits of those things. So the Panchabhutas, we are not saying that Bhagavan is sitting somewhere and mixing beakers of earth and water and fire. And the Panchabhutas are in fact what we call Tanmatras. Tanmatra ante Telugu ante amatrame, ante అని చెప్పి అర్థం. Ante. So it is actually a reductionist thing. So we have 5 tanmatras, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha tanmatras, which when made gross become the Panchabhutas, from which we say that this cosmos came. So these 5 are the 5 things that we perceive in the world. So sight, sound or rupam, whatever you see, sound, whatever you hear, taste, whatever you experience through your tongue, touch and shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, fragrance. So there is no experience you have of the outer world that is not contained in these 5. So the ancient Indian approach is that we are experiencing these 5 things. So we will qualify objects based on how we experience them. So if there is something that is very fragrant, we have said that Gandha is the Lakshana of Prithvi. So we will say that it contains more aspects of Prithvi. If there is something that is having sound, sound is associated with Akasha. So we will say that it has aspects of Akasha. It is not that there is one clay ball of Akasha that has been stuffed into the object. We are qualifying the object based on how you experience it. So it is a completely different approach. And this approach no one can deny. You cannot deny that an object in front of me has some quality that allows it to be visible to me. The object in front of me has some quality that makes it audible to me. No one can deny this. So the quality that makes it visible to me, we have named as Tejas in our Shastra. The quality that makes it audible to me, we have termed as Akasha. So this is also, I would argue that this is no less scientific. It is perhaps a bit more philosophical because it is tying your experience to the nature of the object. See, because there is no guarantee that the rupa that you experience or the reaction that you have to that object is the reaction that someone else will have. But the fact that the object has the quality, some innate quality that allows itself to be presentable to, or that allows itself to be presented to the senses, is something that no one can negate. So it is completely a difference in perception, right? And for example, we have, you will see in many texts that we will say sthavara jangama, chetana. The way we split up the world is completely different. We split up the world into sentient and insentient. So it's a different approach. We do not have this phylum, species, genus, taxonomy. That was not our focus then. We were splitting the world into sentient and insentient. Within sentient, what will you divide? Within insentient, what will you divide? So that was a completely different approach. So it does not become a task to do the samanvaya of, it does not become a task to bridge these ancient texts with modern knowledge, if we simply recognize that they are both talking about the same thing. The subject matter is the same. It is the same cosmos that they are talking about, the same universe. The approaches are different. If you understand the approach, it is much easier to integrate them. The other thing is you also have to understand the intent. For example, our astronomy, forget about astrology. Astronomy, why were we concerned about astronomy? In fact, astronomy is a Vedanga. Jyotisha is a Vedanga, one of the 6 Vedangas. We were concerned with it because, and the Shastra itself tells us this, for dharma you have to do certain karmas. These karmas are told in the Shastras to be done at certain places and times. Without knowledge of astronomical movements, you cannot properly gauge time. Therefore, we are now going to discuss astronomy. So the scope of astronomy is clearly defined. In the same way, chemistry. We also did have great deals of alchemy and all that. Mathematics as well. So our mathematics started with the measurements needed to make yaga kundas and homa kundas. So how do you make a semicircle along with the diameter? So a semicircle with the diameter using bricks. So how do you calculate those distances? So obviously you will need to devise a system for that. Obviously after that, as an intellectual field it spread. So once you come to Brahmagupta and Varahamihira and all that, you do have many higher concepts as well. But you have to understand where the Indian civilization was coming from. So it was very clear that all other forms of learning are ancillary to a dharmic lifestyle. Not that everything has to be spiritual or philosophical, but for someone who is leading a dharmic lifestyle, what are all the branches of knowledge that he would need to be acquainted with? They have taken those and delved into those as much as was needed to live such a lifestyle. So if we understand this context, it does not become archaic anymore. It in fact becomes even more real. Because, as I said, the universe is the universe and everyone has been interacting with it in one way or the other. It is just recognizing that different people have done it in different ways. No one way is more right than the other. The one place where I will say is philosophy. Philosophy, we have gone much farther simply because that has been in the blood of this land. The idea that there is more to life than just living it is something that is burnt into our DNA. That is why the highest philosophy that perhaps even professors in the West may not think of, you will find not only discussed but lived by our own grandparents. ఇప్పుడు ఈ బామ్మలు అవ్వలందరూ the morals or the outlook that they lived with, I doubt whether the greatest philosophers of other countries would be able to live like that.
Yeah.
Right, just because it is burnt into our blood. The fact that తాత్కాలిక సుఖం కన్నా పారమార్థికమైన సుఖం ముఖ్యమైనది, it is a simple point, but a point that many people are missing very easily. రైట్, ఎంతైనా ఓర్చుకొని మన పని మనం చేయడమే, ఫలితం మన చేతుల్లో లేదు, రావాల్సిందేదో వస్తుంది. These phrases, I mean I'm saying it in Telugu, but some phrases that we have become used to are in fact very profound topics. జరగాల్సిందేదో జరుగుతుంది. This is such a heavy statement. What has to happen will happen. I mean, this is not a statement that we are just making. At least I feel that when an Indian person makes a statement, they are not saying it for namesake. There is some concept of karma and what entails things happening that goes into this statement. So things like this, చేసుకున్న వాడికి చేసుకున్నంత, కష్టే ఫలి, మొక్కయొంగదే మానేయొంగతో, I mean all these statements that are so commonplace to us are in fact very profound concepts.
Very deeply rooted, so simply used in day-to-day life.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, I mean, I think because it is so simple, we don't appreciate it. We fail to. That is one more thing that I keep telling in my upanyas, is that it is both a blessing and a curse that in Sanātana Dharma, the most profound topics are taught to us from day one. ఇప్పుడు భగవంతుడు అందరిలో ఉంటాడు, భగవాన్ is there in everyone. We are taught this from day one. Right? I mean, we all probably don't even remember the first day when we were taught this.
Yeah.
But if to truly understand this, how much work is needed? It is. I mean, half of Vedanta is this only. So these simple concepts, right, are anta ashashvatam. Right? I mean, it is a very simple statement to make. What do we mean when we say that things are impermanent? In what nature are they impermanent? Because the world has been going on for a long period of time, right? Many eons, and as per us, there are many cycles, many big bangs and crunches. Both we say that they have been happening cyclically for God knows how many times.
You know Ramayanalu.
Exactly. So when that is our world view, in such a cosmic view, if we say that things are impermanent, what does that actually mean? See, if we say that the world has always been coming like this, and then we say that things are impermanent, what does that mean? That is why there is so much discussion in the Shastras on this. ఇప్పుడు మిథ్యాత్వ విచారము అనే శాస్త్రాలు ఏదైతే ఉందో, there is a reason why it is such a heated topic. So these profound topics are presented to us so early on and in such simple language that sometimes we fail to understand how much thought had gone into that simple statement. And I think one more thing is there, that these days, for the sake of division within the society, we keep saying that knowledge was withheld or certain classes were denied access to some things. Okay, maybe some things have happened, but I think we fail to recognize the grand success of our civilization in ensuring that the most academic principles that are the fruit of centuries of philosophical debate have been ingrained into even the common man. Is that not a victory?
Yeah.
The fact that the conclusions of intellectuals are inserted into the daily lives of the common man, life of the common man, is in fact a massive victory for a dharmic civilization. And I think we fail to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that regardless of what part of the society you come from, you do in fact have a connection with Bhagavan. See, the where you will find discrimination and perhaps room for any discontent is how the institutions will interact with you. So obviously when you have a civilization, you will have an institution. Certain temples will be there, will be rules in that, certain practices will be there, who should do, what should be done, how should it be done. These institutional things are what will cause pain to some people, happiness to some people, and all of that. That is the case across the board. There is no institution that will be universally palatable.
Yeah.
However, where I will maintain that we have been very successful is concepts. See, institutions aside, at the end of the day, things are rooted in concepts. These concepts that shape our life, we have been incredibly successful in ensuring that regardless of what sector of society someone is from, regardless of what their background is, regardless of whether they have anything to do with this or not, we have ensured that the basic concepts of Sanātana Dharma, which are the products of great intellectual work, have become rooted.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I feel we have become very successful. So that is also something to keep in mind. When we look at modern versus ancient, as I said in the beginning, this will all come only when you don't start off saying that is old, this is new, therefore they must be opposed. Only if you don't start from there will you be able to take it. See, not saying that you have to take everything. Just as at some point, if we look at a science textbook from the 18th century, will we take everything? No. But we do appreciate their methodology, which has allowed them to move forward. In the same way, obviously, there will be things in our texts of the past wherein they are not entirely accurate. I am not denying that. And anyone with an unbiased mind will say that. However, what we should understand is the underlying concepts that they were going through with. For example, in the West, atomic theory. Atomic theory was based on the point that there should be some unit of matter that is indivisible. So, based on that, the theories that they came up with, some were right, some were wrong. Right now, we are under the impression that what we have is currently correct because it has held up to trials. But all the same, although earlier models were wrong, their theory that there is an indivisible entity that combines in various ways to create various other objects was in fact very well placed. Right? If this concept was not there, there is no more flow of knowledge that comes from that. So in the same way, even if maybe here and there are some discrepancies in our texts with the natural workings, if we keep this mindset or the Indic approach in mind, they will not be viewed as failures. Rather, they will be viewed as natural successions in a particular stream of thought. And in many cases, most things are in fact right. It is not like we have been wrong all the time. There are just some, maybe a handful of instances wherein some things don't match.
Yeah.
But even there, if you do keep in mind that, I mean, that's the point of science, right? You theorize, some things are right, some things are wrong. Once you figure out what's right, you theorize further. So that theorizing and moving forward is something that we are very good with. Unfortunately, once the education system changed, colonial period, obviously there was a halt to that. But when we look at the olden texts, we should not judge them based on the veracity of the contents, which in fact do have a great deal of veracity to them. We should be judging them based on the stream of thought. If we see that many things, the samanvaya, bridging these two becomes so easy. It is in fact not even, it is effortless. You don't have to try. It is very simple.